Good morning, Oakwood Church. It's Tuesday, the 29th of April, and today my session is supposed to cover the entirety of Acts chapter 24. But to be honest, that would be a little bit tricky. There is kind of a lot going on in this chapter, so rather than try and explain all the depth and richness of what's going on here, I'm just going to take a couple of minutes and focus in on one aspect of Paul's argument with the Sanhedrin here, and the way that he goes about derailing their accusations against him, for no other reason than its utter genius. You see, the Sanhedrin, the high priest and his party, had come down from Jerusalem to accuse Paul of trying to start a riot and from profaning the Jewish law. In verse 5 they say that we have found this man to be a troublemaker, stirring up riots among the Jews all over the world. He is a ringleader of the Nazarene sect, and he even tried to desecrate the temple, so we seized him. Now, in the Roman world, these are serious charges. This is a Roman governor he's standing in front of. A Roman governor does not want an insurrection in his province. It's the last thing they want to have to deal with. Riots and disharmony means having to send in soldiers, it gets bloody, it costs money. It's not good governance to have an insurrection within your province. It causes no end of problems, which this governor will probably have to sort out. So this is a serious set of accusations. So how does Paul go in about making his defence? Well, first of all, he's kind of flippant. He points out that he's only been in Jerusalem for about a week, which is hardly enough time to start a revolution. And then he pretty much ignores most of the charges that they bring against him, and instead he cuts right to the heart of the matter. He's there because he believes in the resurrection. He's there because they don't like what Paul believes. See, in verse 15, Paul says, I have the same hope in God that these men themselves have, that there will be a resurrection of both the righteous and the wicked. Now, we can't be sure how many of these men actually even believed in the resurrection. We do know that the high priest and a number of his party would have been Sadducees, and they certainly didn't believe in the resurrection. So what Paul has done here is that he's moved the debate from an accusation of insurrection and profaning the Jewish law to a theological discussion about the resurrection. In doing this, Paul focuses on one of the central tenets of the gospel, and at the same time he exposes the real problems that the Jews had with him. Basically, they didn't like what Paul believed. It's genius. Paul undoes his accusers' attempt to frame their allegations as a political crime, which could get him convicted of a crime against the state. What Paul does here is prove, as mad as it sounds, that the church is not some new radical movement, but is something that stands in line with the core beliefs of Judaism. It is the church's claim of the resurrection of the dead, which is at issue here in the debate, and it's the cause of contention between Paul and the high priest. Paul insisted that the real contention of Ananias and the Jewish elders opposed to him was that they didn't like his religious beliefs, because Paul proves he is more conformed with the beliefs and practices of his people than those who were accusing him. And that must have really upset the high priest. Like I said, I'm not going to take too much of your time this morning, but I just wanted to expose the brilliance of Paul's rhetoric and focus on one of the wonders of the gospel. That we are not some aberration, that we didn't just fall out of the sky with the coming of Jesus, that from the beginning of time, God's plan was that the church would be the living, breathing expression of his spirit and bring around his plan and purpose, which from day one was always that he would be our God and we would be his people. May you know his grace and peace this day.